Okay, hey guys, it's Matt here again, and welcome to Advanced Nutrition Workshop Continued. We're going to get into the meat on this video. We're going to be looking at some of our advanced principles to actually gauging your portion control and being a bit more specific about it. But just before we do that, I just wanted to one more time go back over some of the level 1 principles because, like I said before, really, you don't want to be looking at advanced methods until you've nailed the basics. It's like trying to run before you can walk. Okay, so think of these principles as almost like a qualification to making the jump. So we want to be following the 80% rule, okay, which is eating. This is the mindful eating practice, which is eating to satisfied, not stuffed, basically. So this means by the end of the meal, or a meal, you feel like you could potentially still go for a walk or even a little jog. Okay, this is one of the best portion control methods, full stop, because your body will, if you really can actually be mindful and actually really enjoy every mouthful, your body will tell you, your brain will tell you when you're full. Okay, and what happens is when you're actually following the 80% full rule and taking your time with your food as well, you do get that satiety effect much better than if you eat quickly. Okay, so the next rule is the 90% SIF rule, which is the single ingredient foods rule. Okay, this is trying to get, on average, over a course of a week, at least 90% of your foods from single ingredient foods. So a single ingredient food is like an egg is one ingredient, it's an egg. A chicken breast is one ingredient, it's chicken breast. Kellogg's cornflakes, you have a look at the back of a packet of Kellogg's cornflakes and you'll find tons of ingredients because many of them are not food ingredients. So we want to be choosing single ingredient foods, okay? Because we want to maximize the nutrient density from our diet. The third principle is the water, getting hydrated. Okay, so 3, so if you watch the daily detox video, you'll know how important it is for detoxification reasons to get your 3 liters of water in a day. That can come through herbal teas, through your vegetables, etc., and or water intake. So the next one is, following on from that, is the daily detox. There were 3 other ways, and actually just if you go back to that daily detox video, you'll have a good understanding on the importance of using that as a principle in itself. And then lastly, we've got your portion control method that we are hopefully been using since you started the program 3 weeks ago. Okay, the Calorie Counting Made Simple guide. So just a reminder, this is the guide where we're using your own hand to actually measure your portions. Okay, so this is an example for fats. So with fats we use the thumb. Okay, so for men 2 thumbs for a meal, and ladies 1 thumb. Okay, so we use the palm for protein. Okay, we use the fist for your starchy carbs or your non-starchy carbs. And then we use the cup for your carb-dense foods like your breads and your pastas and your rices. Okay, so the reason this is so powerful is, well, number one, you can't forget it. You don't need a smartphone. You don't need any technology. You always have your hand with you. So there's really no excuses to why you would portion yourself or give yourself too much on your plate when you have your hand with you. Okay. It just acts as a really good baseline because obviously if you're a bigger person, you generally will have a bigger hand. So your plate will look bigger than a smaller person with a smaller hand. So it's kind of all relative. Of course, there are the odd people that are smaller and have bigger hands. They're the exception to the rule. You have to remember this isn't an exact science. What we're looking for here is a baseline to start with. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they never have a baseline. And you can't say a diet doesn't work unless you're at least following some form of measurement. So we're going to be looking at the Calorie Counting Made Simple guide as one measurement, and then we are going to go even more advanced and look at calories. So in regards to the level 2 nutrition guidelines, we're going to look at what is somatotyping. We're going to identify your body type in this video, and at a later point we're going to, well, no, actually we're going to cover some macronutrient needs and refinement in this video as well. So like I said, advanced personalization methods, we use them for great results. Like I said, we're going to cover both the calorie counting made simple and calorie counting personalization guides. So you have a couple of options basically moving forwards. In regards to the calorie counting made simple guide that you've been following, these are roughly the calories that you're consuming. Obviously it's dependent on your hand size, but you know, if you're a lady, it's somewhere between 1200 to 1500. So this is the reason why, if you're super active and maybe you're more muscular, a bigger lady potentially, you know, you might need more calories than 1500. You know, it's definitely, you know, there's no reason why you wouldn't. Okay, so let's get into it, guys. Let's look into somatotyping. So basically, with somatotypes, we can categorize people into 3 different types of body type. Okay, and based on those 3 types of body type, you will metabolize foods differently. Your hormonal makeup will be different, and your nervous system, your SNS nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system will react differently. So this means that, you know, your tolerance to maybe carbohydrates might be different to someone else's. Your insulin sensitivity will be different to someone else's. Okay, so identifying which body type category you fall into is a really cool way of being able to personalize things slightly. So let's go into the 3 body types so you can actually identify which category you fall into. So number 1 is the ectomorph. Now, I'll be honest, we get a very little amount of ectomorphs. We do have ectomorphs that come on our program, but typically ectomorphs are those annoying friends that seem to be able to eat as much as they want and never gain a pound of weight. Okay, so ectomorph body shapes are your Paula Radcliffes of the world. They're typically skinny. Okay, they are typically thin but long-limbed, and they typically can eat quite a bit, particularly carbohydrates as well, and not gain weight. Other characteristics are flat chest, small shoulders, okay, can tolerate carbs well without gaining weight, and ectomorphs tend to are better suited to resistance-based training rather than cardio if their goal is weight loss. Okay, the reason for that is because of their high metabolism, they are likely to go into catabolic mode, so they're actually losing more muscle. Okay, which isn't a good thing for fat loss. Okay, and because of that high metabolism, ectomorphs are suited to eat before bed, and like I said, they benefit well from strength training. So ectomorphs can get away with a higher carb ratio. So 50% carbs, 30% protein, 20% fat. Like I said, this doesn't mean to say that you can't gain weight as an ectomorph. It just means that your ratio of macronutrients will be slightly different. You can tolerate carbs better than the other 2 body types, and resistance training is more suited to you than cardio. So you might ask, well, what does this mean for my diet? So here we go. So if you're a female and you're an ectomorph, then you would have that palm of protein food as normal. You'd have that fist of veggies as normal, but you could actually get away with 2 cups of carb-dense foods rather than just the 1 at each meal. Also with ectomorphs, we keep the fats a little bit lower, so just half a thumb per serving. Okay, so moving on to mesomorphs. Mesomorphs are naturally athletic and strong. You tend to see people like sprinters as mesomorphs. Okay, they tend to be around the sort of 5 5'6" to 5'10", and they do gain muscle quite easily. Equally, they can gain fat quite easily. I put myself into the Mesomorph category. Mesomorphs tend to have broader shoulders, okay? And Mesomorphs do need to watch their calorie intake to avoid gaining weight. If Mesomorphs overeat, they will gain weight much quicker than an Ectomorph. Mesomorphs also respond well to resistance training. They have a reasonable tolerance to carbs, but do need to watch the carb intake a little bit. So that's why we would give a Mesomorph 10% less carbs than an Ectomorph. So 40% carbs is roughly where I tend to sit with my own carb intake, with 30% of my food coming from protein and fat. Okay? And so for a guy, that looks like something like this. Okay? So 2 palms of protein, 2 fists of veggies, 2 carb-dense foods, 2 thumbs of fat. Okay? And then for a female, that would look like the following. So carb-dense food, so protein-dense food, thumb of fat, etc. Okay, then we've got a last body type, which is your endomorph. So endomorph's body shape characteristics are sort of softer, rounder, wider hips, typically a little bit shorter and on the stockier side. Okay, so your endomorphs for sporting, endomorphs are typically your shot putters. Okay, some of those, strong men, power lifters. They're the type of people that tend to suit those types of sports as endomorphs. Okay, and that's why endomorphs can gain muscle easily. But if you've ever watched, World's Strongest Man, you'll see that equally they have a lot of fat on them as well. So endomorphs typically are muscular, or they can gain muscle easy, but they can actually gain fat very easy. Okay, so just notice the difference between that. They can gain muscle easy, but gain fat very easy. So if you are the type of person that really finds it hard to lose weight, and you feel like you've got a slow metabolism, you've got wider hips, short and stockier, then there's a chance that you're an endomorph. Okay, so in that case, you would really need to dial down on your calorie intake. And if you are in the endomorph category, I would start with this macronutrient profile and really try and stick to it. Okay, so endomorphs respond to more training overall. That's one of the things. That's one of my biggest recommendations. If you think that you fit into the endomorph category, then you really need to be getting in a good 4 or 5 days training. 3 days just isn't going to cut it. Okay. Unfortunately, endomorphs do not tolerate carbs very well. A lot of endomorphs tend to be insulin resistant, and so this is why the macronutrient ratio is a lot less. So only 25% carbs is the recommendation, 35% protein, 40% fat. So just look at that last one, 40% fat. Why so much fat? Simple science, basically. Endomorphs have been proven to do much better on a higher fat diet. In fact, a lot of studies have been shown people who are endomorphs to do ketosis diets and have done phenomenally well. Ketosis diet, by the way, is a 90%, 95% fat to high fat diet. Okay, because just remember, even though we're taking more fat, what we're really concerned with is the overall amount of calories coming in by the end of the day. Okay, so how does that relate? So that basically changes your calorie counting made simple guide. You would still have your palm of protein at each meal, and you'd still have a fist of veggies at each meal or more. That's the one macronutrient I'm happy for you to bulk things out on. However, your carb-dense food would need to halve. So you'd have an average of 0.5 cups of cup in terms of your hand from carb-dense foods. However, the upside is you get 3 thumbs of fat. So that's your that's your sacrifice, if you like. So if you like your fatty foods, your healthy fatty foods like your avocados, if you like your salmons, your fishes, eggs, then you got no worries at all if you're an endomorph. Okay, so this is a simple way of refining the guide you've already got based on your body type. Okay, now I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions on this, so I'm not going to go any further, but I want you to ask any questions that you do have, okay, in the group, and we'll try and answer them. So what's going to come up next is you have to look out for the next video where we're actually going to go into an even more advanced guide where we actually look at calories individually. Okay, so stay tuned, guys.